America and the rest of the world. Xander J. Hobson here. As you can see, I got the U.S. Marine shirt on. I did serve from 1986 to 1992. But the life as a Marine was short-lived for me. Sleeping and taking a dump out in the elements didn't sit well with me. It was, however, excellent training for one who planned on being a fucking bum. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Byron Allen, stand-up comedian and media mogul. Byron Allen has filed a $30 billion lawsuit against ATT, Comcast, Al Sharpton, the NAACP, the Urban League, and various other media agencies. He's filed the suit using a law that was passed in 1866, right after they freed the slaves. And the purpose of this law was to keep the white businessmen of that time from engaging in discriminatory practices in hiring the newly freed slaves. The name of this law is called Section 1981. And this lawsuit that Byron Allen has filed it's like 5 years in the making. I believe he might have filed this suit back in 2014, and it has finally worked its way all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And the reason why Byron Allen filed this suit, because just like the white slave owners engaged in discriminatory practices which excluded the newly freed slaves from making an honest dollar, Byron Allen filed his suit against the various individuals that I named because they have been excluding African American or black media agencies from a $50 billion annual budget to do business. Now you might say to yourself, well, why is Byron Allen suing the NAACP, the Urban League, and Al Sharpton? They're black like him. Well, the reason why Byron Allen is suing them or have named them in this lawsuit is because companies like AT&T and Comcast have been donating their way to get some kind of a pass so they won't be called racist or be accused of engaging in discriminatory practices because we donate money to Al Sharpton's cause, to the NAACP or the Urban League. I was surprised to discover that AT&T spent only $30,000 with Ebony Magazine during this time period that Byron Allen filed the lawsuit. But they spent way more money on Al Sharpton's 60th birthday party. Fancy that. We'll give Ebony Magazine, a magazine that's read by millions of African Americans and other people as well. We only give them 30 grand to their cause, but we'll spend all this money on Al Sharpton. Sounds like a bit of tokenism or selective practices to me. Also, Byron Allen pointed out that out of a $50 billion annual budget, Comcast or whoever he's suing only spent $3 million doing business with black media agencies. $3 million out of a $50 billion budget. Sounds fishy to me. We donated money to the Urban League and Al Sharpton, the NAACP, but we only spent $3 million out of $50 billion with black media agencies. I learned that not only is Byron Allen a heavyweight in the multimedia industry, he's one of the biggest independent media agencies in the world. He's responsible for a whole lot of programming, including some of my favorite court TV shows. I also learned that Ice Cube and LL, Rock the Bells. These guys are in the multimedia business. So that was very informative. Byron Allen also pointed out how, you have black media agencies or media agents that are supposed to be black, but they only have black faces. And in all actuality, they're controlled by these white business entities. So that's a story that I'm following. You all should be following it as well, because it involves us. Once again, folks, this goes back to that conversation that we had about Jay-Z being a sellout. No, Jay-Z is trying to get a piece of the American pie. We're talking about a race to the finish line here, folks, and we have to get ours. If African Americans are continually discriminated against economically, we are going to become a part of the permanent underclass, just like there's a permanent underclass of black faces throughout the world. I have traveled the world extensively, and in some parts of the world that I've been to, I see black people just standing around, looking like vagrants. The same way when I've traveled through various parts of the United States, starting with Philadelphia, I see black men and women just standing up on the corners, idle, because there is no workforce for African Americans. If you're not industrious to figure out how to get at a buck, guess what? You're no more useful to society than a cow that's just standing in the field grazing. And that's what happened to the cities like Philadelphia, Detroit, Chester, Camden. The workforce, the factories, they closed down and they left the inner city, and you left a lot of African Americans unemployed. They sent these jobs overseas to sweatshops. And now the factories are closed, and now people who were making a great living, who were sending their kids to college, buying beautiful homes, taking vacations, all of that is gone. So now with that said, right, that brings me back to what I was talking about. Byron Allen, a black man who is fighting the civil rights fight, but he's not fighting this fight in the trenches like the foot soldiers, like Colin Kaepernick, like Martin Luther King, like Malcolm X. Byron Allen is fighting his fight as an aviator or maybe in the courtroom. So with that said, I encourage all of you to follow this story, to see what Byron Allen is doing. Cheer for Byron Allen, because his verdict affects us all, especially people like me in the multimedia business. And guess what? If Byron Allen wins, I win somehow. That's it. I'm done with it.
Thank you, Chuck.
Bam!
Bam!
My man.
My man.
Here and there, we had our ups and downs. For everybody, you can remember the Africa Centre.